Welcome to the Pokepal Draft League Season 2. This is just the draft board. We've just finished drafting, and I'm going to hop over to my team to break down kind of how the draft went. Alrighty, and now that I'm on my draft, I'm going to talk about why I made some of these decisions and how everything ended up going. Because my draft started exactly on my written draft plan, which I'll talk about. And then the Chien-Pao Dragonite was not expected. Like you'll notice this is in pick order. Yeah, we first picked Weezing, Galarian form instead of Han. I think Hands was still open at this point. Maybe not. Golden Go definitely was. Chien-Pao obviously was because it fell pretty late. But I went for this Weezing first. Now, if you're watching this and you're new, you might be like, what is this idiot doing? And if you're not new, you're not surprised even in the slightest, because I just love playing Weezing. And part of why I love playing it is I do think it is just so strong. Like it can be hard to build a team around that properly utilizes it. But I just love it. I just love Weezing, and if nobody is gonna play it better than me, I just want to be the Weezing player. And then I have a draft of things that don't necessarily need their abilities, except for we do have Chien-Pao Dragonite, but again, I wasn't really meant to be there. And now, Ribombee does want Shield Dust for the flinch immunity, but equally as just a fast tailwind setter, and also has screens, also has, I think it gets Encore. That's just something I should know. But it just has some good moves, even though it lost Speed Swap, which still hurts. So I always like it as a Pokemon. And then it also pairs really well with Typhlosion, being Tailwind and or Sunny Day. Yeah, so I really liked Ribombee Typhlosion not needing abilities, so they pair well with Weezing. And I was planning on drafting budget. I started 12, 10, 13 picks instead of any of these 20, 19, 18 costs. Specifically to have a budget and then figure it out later. Because with Weezing, I'm if nobody wants bundle, I'll pick up bundle later. If nobody wants... I was not expecting Chien-Pao Dragonite, but if Hands, fell through for whatever reason, any Paradox, I'll actually cut to what I planned my ideal draft to be at the end, and it had a Walking Wake on it. So any 15 to 12 cost Paradox Pokemon too, I think it's a slight boost in value on my team being able to be paired with Weezing. But we eventually go to round 5, and Chien-Pao and Dragonite are just sitting on the board with nobody having taken it at the 5th round pick, and so I just end up with Chien-Pao Dragonite, which is amazing. It's just amazing. But then all of a sudden, I was only planning on having 120 and 115 cost as expensive picks, and so having the Dragonite all of a sudden destroyed my budget, and so I had to completely pivot. Although I ended up still getting rolls I wanted, being Poltergeist covers having a Trick Room option, or just a Trick Room button to press, and it has redirection, and Hospitality is pretty good. That's just a good ability. Fake Out Immune is a ghost type. Grass Ghost is just pretty good typing, and for 1 cost to help me then fix my budget, it was really nice. And then Pikachu, it was something on my radar because it's a 5 cost with Fake Out. So I think, you can do Fake Out, Nuzzle. It definitely gets Endeavor. Does it get Encore? A supportive, maybe Sash, maybe Eviolite, whatever you want to do. But then you can also Light Ball it, especially with Lightning Rod. Charge Up, I can press Discharge next to it theoretically too. That ended up being potential good pairing. And it can do it next to Treads. Pikachu can Discharge next to Treads. Charge Bug helps the Typhlosion a lot. Typhlosion, Pikachu, and Charge Bug are real. So like I said, I had to pivot the end of this draft a lot, but I ended up really happy overall with having a lot of my types covered with Treads as the Paradox Pokemon. So I can pair it next to Weezing, and it doesn't feel as bad as other Pokemon. if you're not using it anyway, obviously then you can't use booster energy, but then I also can just use booster energy and not bring Weezing next to it. So like I think it gets a lot of value. Really good next to potential discharge spam Pikachu, which could be I think that's like sleeper, not OP, but like for 5 points, I think it deals real damage. And yeah, I just ended up with a draft sort of similar to what I wanted, but then very different in a couple ways, which was exciting. Yeah, I think I'm very happy with this. But again, I'm just gonna cut over. Yeah, so this was my theoretical ideal draft, because I expected something like Hands or Bundle, honestly, where like the two I was kind of thinking of might have just fallen through. And then obviously I never ended up picking up the Toedscruel. Like the Toedscruel turned into Sinistra basically, and is what saved me all those extra points. And then it was Trick Room in Bronzong, which Sinistra also covered. Fake Out User in Scrafty, which turned into Pikachu. Venture was also Follow Me User, but it actually got sniped, which was not that surprising because I felt like it was just a really good one cost. And so yeah, that kind of turned into Chargeable, I suppose, which honestly is a better support Pokemon than Sentret. Obviously it was more points, but I ended up with more points because I ended up saving even more on Poltergeist Toedscruel than I did by turning Wake into D-Knight, which was even more expensive. So like I said, like the beginning, like my first 4 picks was perfect. It was funny, everybody else was just like running out of points early, and I was chilling because it was all 2019, 18, 17 costs, and then I hadn't picked anything above 13 still, and then all of a sudden I picked Chien-Pao Dragonite, and I was right back even with everybody, but still, it was, I had the option to do that. And the entire draft concept was based on getting what I thought was a really nice early mid-cost pairings, and then picking up whatever was the strong leftovers. And so, just because it was something completely different than I expected, I'm very happy with how I was able to pivot in the draft I ended up with. Okay, so this was very funny because Zking and obviously, whatever, also Parker and Mac and Lego did a tier list. I mean, Zkings, but they were all interacting, and that, as was I in the chat. And, I came away from that draft, and I recorded right before any of the tier list starting, and I was like, I really like my draft, and I really liked how I pivoted, and ending up with the Pound Knight, Treads, Poltergeist, Pikachu, Charjabug to round that out. Was very happy because none of those Pokemon, save Pikachu, kind of Poltergeist, and maybe Charjabug, but they were, those three were not intended to be picked next to each other originally. So I was very happy with how I pivoted, what I ended up with. And then specifically, like when they got to my team, which it was also like the second to last one, they were just like, this is a good, who gave him Pound Knight, but also who gave him Pound Knight as a 5th, 6th pick? And the answer is the other 14 people in this draft. So, there's no one to blame but the other 14 people who did not pick one or both of Chien-Pao and Dragonite and all the picks before that, because I was willingly giving shit like that up with, doing my cheap picks. But then I was always going to have to build around whatever that last thing was. But nowhere did I think it was going to be Pound Knight. So that was very funny. That was cool.
Anywho, Sewaddle Squad.
Sewaddle Squad. Everybody, well.
S. So, Weezing Gigas.
It's just S.
Now, hold on.
Wait, how did Pound Knight get here?
Because everybody's
so late in the draft.
Lego. I have one thing. Hold on. I know. You want to know what happened?
What? Please tell me. I would love to know who let them get Pound Knight. Soup. Oh my god.
Ice soup.
Brother,
Ice.
For the record,
Soup.
I was about to grab Chien Pao, and
He
then
was. He said
grabbed
too.
it.
I was about to
So
say,
it was-
Aiden did a really good job of leaving his points up so that he could snipe like a good pairing late when nobody else could kind of like grab one in the middle of him trying to grab it.
Like you just can't stop this. Like just put this in S tier. Just put this in S tier. Man.
It's probably S tier. I don't know.
I don't
Well, I
think
think
it's stronger than Mac's team.
I think it's stronger than
No.
Austin's. I don't think it's stronger than Max.
Yeah,
I think
Austin's team's really dependent on its abilities too.
yeah, I think this is kind of where hold on. Ice Soup is in the way. There we go.
Can we tier Ice Soup after this is done?
Aiden, I think you paid off like every other person in the draft. Like, what did you?
And then the second thing is I don't think I actually properly shared this. I had a little bit of notes I'd taken above. This was my full thought process because basically I wanted a Pokemon I can build whole teams around that I like and enjoy playing and can do shit with. Gold is the only one in here that I like actually don't. And then other than that, just a Sun and a Rain team and then Weezing stuff is basically the thought process. But the weathers are like not like easy because they're still real and strong, but they're a lot easier to counter in draft, and you just kind of know your opponent is going to bring a certain weather each week. And so with that, I feel like Weezing is harder to play around other than throwing an ability shield on a thing, but then I force you to use an ability shield and then I can just not bring Weezing. You know, like I think Weezing is amazing and I just use Weezing regularly. So of course. And then from there, Pokemon that enable Weezing to be like super oppressive, because that is the issue with Weezing is you turn your own abilities off as well. So unless you also want to commit to an ability shield, you know, you have to think about that. Regigigas, obvious. Slacking I was going to be completely fine with if Gigas got sniped. I did take Gigas 4th pick still instead of like putting it off a ton because I didn't want to deal with it being later. I don't know, even saying it out loud, I like maybe could have put it later, but I also wanted to conserve points early was part of it. And so like we you know, we'll get there. So no, I you know, it worked. And then Toadscroll was obviously in my initial draft plan. Like it initially, like I was gonna pick this guy 3rd, like at some point. But then I was like, yeah, you know, obviously just paradoxes. And then I was like, I just don't need to list out every paradox, but I think any paradox does get a slight buff being next to Weezing. Even the ones you don't typically think of, like Fluttermane is kind of in Bundor like the most obvious because they already have the speed. But like a lot of the paradox mons have just proved themselves to be pretty good even without like a real ability. And so you're just like, okay, I'll just put a Weezing next to it and it's not bad. And yeah, you see here I'm like good 3, then I can build out team of whatever might be left. And this is me, and this is crazy that something else happened in the draft that I never caught, because I apparently I didn't fucking comb through well enough, but I tried to go through and like find things that I thought were pretty underrated for their point value, and somehow I missed the fucking Ampharos and oh my god, Tentacruel that were just chilling in 1 cost that as soon as we're caught, we're like, whoa, those are not 1 cost Pokemon. But anyway, so, you know, obviously I had clocked Poltergeist at some point. And for the record, all 4 of these did get picked because, you know, people needed the low cost just to run out their draft. And like, yeah, I mean, these are actual value picks. Not that I even think they like should be higher, because Venonat at 3 I think is like horseshit. Sentret and Poltergeist. Honestly, these 3 Loki maybe could be 2 cost, but you know, like, do you just want all 1 cost to just be complete ass, or like, because I think this is a good line. It's like Venonat versus Poltergeist line. Anyway, yeah, Trapinch and the Vulpixes. I thought I was gonna pick up Vulpix after I got Pal Knight because I was just trying to figure out whatever. And And Toxicroak I also thought I was going to pick, but then I didn't because I wasn't going to pick those two with each other. Yeah, I wanted Bronzong. Pikachu. What happened was I found Raichu. And I don't know, something clicked in my brain where I was like, wait. I've like passed where Pikachu should be. Where is Pikachu? And then I was like, ooh, at 5, that's not bad. I like these. And then, yeah, you see, I hit Rabombi at 10, and I was like, whoa, that's a really, really fast Tailwind user to pair next to Weezing at a 10 cost, which Noivern also was, and Jumpluff also was. And Kilowattrel is a little bit more expensive, but it still would have been good. And then I was like, ooh, a Typhlosion at 13? Like, I think that could be like 15, 16. And then, like, those are a good pairing together and with Weezing. I was like, pfft. So here we get to me trying to just figure out my actual plans. I was always, I talked to Kamikaze Kid about my draft just a little bit, and he like overall liked the plans basically, but even he was like, do you need to first pick the Weezing? And I was like, hey, probably not. And like, nobody else drafted any Weezing, so probably not. Although Austin did say in the Twitch chat that he was potentially going to pick up the Weezing, so maybe it was good that I picked it up first. Because Kanto Weezing does most of the same things, but like Galarian Weezing literally just does all the same things but more. Galarian Weezing is just a lot better here. And then second, Rabombi, Kilowattrel, or Noivern. That was basically my line of, if Rabombi got taken because somebody else was also going budget, and like I felt like Rabombi was like too low, Kilowattrel, like actual fastest, or is Rabombi faster? This is something I should know, someone who drafted them, but I only need to worry about that for 1 week. Offhand, if I had to make a bet, I think it's Kilo. Like, I think Kilo is the actual fastest, because otherwise I would have fucking put Rabombi next to Weezing at some point. Okay, but I'm not a complete idiot, for the record, because they are 1 point apart. It's 124 and 125. So I'm not that crazy. Rabombi is faster than Talonflame. No, I'm a fucking moron. Talonflame's the one faster than all of them. And then with Rabombi, I wanted Typhlosion first. I didn't think it was real, but I did just write down, like, dude, if Fluttermane is still up on third pick, like, I will do that instead of, like, here. Because holy shit, why Fluttermane's still up? But then Dragapult, and then same thing where I was like, no way Golden Go is up. And then we don't even need to think about where that line was going. But then, yeah, the Regigigas. And then this is where the draft actually pivoted. Because this was meant to be, I mean, I figured Amoonguss wasn't there, but Amoonguss would have been better than Toedscruel. And then one of, like, Electabuzz or Magmar. Like, just, like, a good redirector. And then 6th pick is where, like, in my ideal draft, I had Hands just sitting there. But it was, like, any, like, really good high-cost pick that pairs well with the rest of my team. But then Poundknight was still up on 5, and because of where I was in draft, it was me, Alex picks twice, me again. So literally just if he doesn't snipe it, it's fine. And he, like, kind of had already actively passed on the Poundknight the round before. You know, as everybody did, for the record. Like, it wasn't that, like, he actively passed, but I, like, wasn't so worried about the snipe. And I was like, you know, I can find something else for Dragonite if it does get sniped. But then I just got Poundknight. But it also blew up my expense, because I was imagining this was going to be a 10 cost and then 20. And then all my Trick Room options that I really liked were like 8 or 9 cost. Scrafty and Hands were picked. And I know I wrote down Hariyama, but I really ended up deciding I didn't like it at all next to Weezing, because I just didn't want to pair a Guts Pokemon next to Weezing, even though I don't have to put them next to each other. I didn't like it. And Alex did end up drafting it, and then I think dropping it in the free trade. But I decided already at that point that I didn't want the Hariyama. And then I was really struggling with one cost that I liked. I obviously did end up picking the Sinestro. And even though I had written down Litten, and Litten was real, I don't know. I just didn't want it. Like, Litten did not sound appealing to me. And I decided here that I just needed to draft Pokemon that I would love to use, that like I will enjoy being on my team and like have value. And so I wasn't going to sacrifice picking a one cost I wasn't happy with for picking something that was slightly more. And so that's where Sinestro got picked before like the 4 or 5 cost, because there were only a couple one costs that were even remotely okay. Centric got sniped really relatively early for the one cost. I decided I didn't like Litten even after having looked at it. And then I needed Poltergeist. So that's where Poltergeist came from. And then Treads came from still like kind of wanting a Paradox to pair next to Weezing, theoretically. I just needed a Steel type is what it was. And then I was like, oh, there's a good physical Steel type to pair with Chien-Pao. That's a Paradox to pair next to Weezing. And then it was a ground type to pair next to... I want to click Discharge with Electro Ball Pikachu at least 1 week, to be 100% honest. But, okay, that's also where, like, Pikachu feels so good. So I think Pikachu is a really nice 5 pick. And then Charjabug doesn't do quite as much. But like I said, because it is battery, and it also has its own discharge, which can pair with Pikachu's Lightning Rod to keep giving it a Spatak boost. It also is just the battery. Yeah, like I'm sure Charjabug isn't going to love taking Pikachu's discharge, but Pikachu can also just click Thunderbolt or something. Like maybe those two pairing is not actually real, but what is genuinely real is how much a 1.3 times boost to Eruption it matters with damage calcs. Its ability would be phenomenal on a Pokemon that like could do anything with that. But with that said, it does get Volt Switch, so it is a slow pivot, which is real. It does get Thunder Wave, it does get Electro Web, it does get Sticky Webs, low key. It gets manual Electric Train for whatever reason. Like there are some things. I think Charjabug is like simultaneously the least real Pokemon on my team, but also like a genuinely good pairing with some of my biggest hitters, or you know, one and a half big hitters. So yeah, I mean, but I think that goes to show like how happy I am with my draft. Like my worst Pokemon, I feel like is it could come to like a third of my games, and I would not be surprised. I don't know what the point of this entirely was. I suppose to kind of gather my own thoughts. I think now that my draft is over, I think I'm fine with showing my draft plans like this. And yeah, I'm very excited for this season. I know I obviously talked about the Pokemon a little bit, but I don't think I really gave away any information that was secret. I didn't give away some crazy tech. Mostly talked about Pikachu. But other than that, it's like, I mean, you just look at them and they, you know what they do. Yeah, like you're not surprised by like Rabombi Shield Dust and like Typhlosion wanting to click Eruption and like Poundnight being Poundnight. But it like the combination of all of them, and then the ability to cook a bit in the builder, because every single one of these Pokemon I can okay, we don't need to worry about Poltergeist, because Poltergeist might, even that I can think of at least 2 things. Every single Pokemon I can think of several different ways to run them, and they're all very strong. and and that was the overall goal, because I think that is like one of the main takeaways from the last 2 drafts I did, which I did like basically at the same time, so there wasn't much learning like after the one for the other, is the flexibility being very, 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 very important. And so that was why I like prioritized my flexible good things early, and then was like, I'll figure out what to flex with it basically. And then although I don't know, you know, like I can talk about how my prep was good and whatnot, but we did just like leave Pound Night for 5-6. Like we can talk about how I saved points efficiently to steal a top pick, but that was to steal a top pick, not Pound Night. So, you know, my draft gets a big boon in that department as well. But yeah, I'm very excited to see how the season goes. I'm very excited to, and although this might be a little rambly, I think this is still relatively interesting. But what I'm about to say is I'm very excited to hopefully make YouTube videos that are slightly less shit than they were in 2025. And then, yeah, go from there. This will be very, very fun.